welcome to another episode of the Good Insights podcast, hosted by me, Alison Cantor. I'm excited to announce that today our guest is author and foundation director Thijs Jansen.
Thank you. Hi, Alison. Thank you for having me on the show.
First, I would like to give more of an introduction about Thijs. In 2005, Thijs's book, titled Professional Pain: Why the Netherlands Does Not Work Well, was published and edited together with Dorian Pessers and Gabriel van den Brink. Following the success of this book, in 2006, Thijs and others founded the Professional Honor Foundation, a think tank helping public or civil servants and people in healthcare, education, and other related fields. In 2009, he published Professional Pride, A Powerful Force, which includes an overview of the Good Work Project. He has also edited a series of books on and with various professions, including The Alternative for Healthcare in 2015, Article 5, The Professional Honor of the Accountant in 2017, Really Doing What's Needed, Plea for Small-Scale Effective Youth Aid in 2018, and The Right to Civil Service Professionalism in 2022. In 2023, the Professional Honor Foundation founded the Academy for Civil Servant Professionalism. Thijs became the director of the Professional Honor Foundation in 2015. He has also been a researcher and lecturer at Tilburg University and the Free University Amsterdam. Welcome, Thijs. It is so great to have you on the podcast today. Before we dive more into the specifics, I wanted to ask you about what the term professional honor really means. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I can elaborate on the professional honor. Well, professional honor is a term used normally for professional groups who are well organized. So they have a professional code, have a sort of socialization, they have disciplinary rules. That's what you normally understand when you talk about professional honor. And what we're trying to do is, with the Professional Honor Foundation, is to help professional groups and semi-professional groups who are not well organized, who are not strictly a very closely organized professional group, to help them to organize like more strictly organized professional groups, such as lawyers, doctors. We work with, for instance, teachers who are very loosely organized. They don't have, in the Netherlands at least, a very strict code, or they don't have disciplinary rules. They have unions and they have some professional associations, but I wouldn't say that they have a clearly view on their own professional honor. And the same goes for the civil servants in the Netherlands. They're not a closely organized professional group with professional honor structure.
Great. Thank you for going more into depth about that. And now I want to ask you, how do the ideas of good work connect to your work with civil servants in the Dutch government?
Yes. Well, as I said, the civil servants in the Netherlands are not a closely organized professional group. You could say that the group of civil servants working in the Dutch government is individualized. So to become a civil servant, it doesn't matter what education you had. So you can be you study biology, for instance, or education, so different studies. So there are no strict rules for what education you should have. And furthermore, when you get into the government, you can fulfill different functions, or you go to different places. It doesn't matter what education you had. And for instance, one of the main, when you think about the government, and you think about what sort of organization it is an organization which has a great power over citizens. They can force citizens to do things, or they can punish you when you don't do things. So the government is an organization with power, and which has a monopoly, because there's no alternative for the government. So what you would like is that all civil servants are very conscious of that they have power, and they have to use that power very carefully. So and when you think about carefully, that would mean, according to us, that they would operate according to a very consistent professional code or ethics. And that's not the case in the Netherlands. So they don't have really a clear professional code of ethics. And what we're trying to do in the Netherlands is to try to see if we can change that, if we can stimulate the government to organize the civil service more like a really professional group with professional honor, with a code of ethics, with disciplinary rules, with one basis socialization, the same socialization. And that's what we're trying to do at this moment, last years, for civil servants.
Thank you for explaining that. Based on your work and research, what does it mean to be an engaged civil servant?
Yes, then I can refer to the Good Work Project. You say engaged, so we all know that the Good Work Project has 3 principles: ethics, engagement, and excellence. And when we try to apply that to the civil servants in the Netherlands, there are certainly many engaged civil servants who are personally engaged to work in the public interest. So that's not the main problem. But when you look to the 2 other principles, are they working ethically? That's the ethics. And do they know what it is to be an excellent civil servant? I would say then engagement is not enough. You have to also have the knowledge and the competences to do your work in an excellent way and in an ethical way. And you have to know that for the principle of ethics, you have to be conscious that you have to be careful, you have to be honest, you have to be transparent, because you exercise power over citizens. So the civil service in the Netherlands are engaged, yes, but there's a lot of work to do to make them more ethical and to formulate goals of excellence for them.
That's a great point that all 3 are important, not just engagement or the others by themselves. And I wanted to get more into your work specifically, also with the Dutch government and about dilemmas. So, as you know, at the Good Project, we talk a lot about dilemmas and decision making. And you have done work in response to the large dilemma in the Netherlands relating to the mismanagement of the childcare sector. Can you tell us
Yeah.
more about the situation for our listeners?
Yeah. Yeah, we had in the Netherlands the last years what we call the child care benefits scandal. And well, that is a scandal which has created really a trust crisis for the Dutch government, because parents who got childcare benefits, they had benefits to help them to pay for childcare. And at a certain moment, there was a sort of hunt on fraud. So the government thought, well, there are many parents and are fraudulent. And there was a clear appeal, or people liked that the fraudulent organizations and parents would be sanctioned very severely. So, and that happened, and there were thousands, more than 25,000 parents and who were wrongly accused, and they had to pay back the childcare benefits over 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, with fines above on top of that. So they were really going broke. So they couldn't live anymore because they didn't have any money anymore. They were really broke. But that was, hindsight, not justified, because they weren't fraudulent. So the government was wrong. So this scandal became bigger and bigger, and so the government had to step down because of it. And afterwards, all organizations, included the government, they thought, well, what did we do wrong? How could this happen? And there, since, let's say, 4 or 5 years, there are many programs to change the government, and especially to help the civil servants to change their behavior. And that's where we come in the picture, because we try to help government organizations and civil servants to learn how they can change their behavior. And that's what I said just before. how they can not only be engaged but also try to excel in being a civil servant, have the knowledge, have the learning, have the education, have the competences, but also how to behave ethical as a civil servant, because they didn't learn that, and there's nothing organized for them. There's, as I said, there's not a professional code for civil servants. They don't have it. So what are the ethical goals you have to live by? They don't know. So it's individualized. What's the excellence they have to strive to? So well, that all that has to be learned. That has to be developed, and that's why we founded also an academy for civil servants, to train them, to learn them how to cope in their work with difficult situations. Well, that's a short story, and we have also other scandals in the Netherlands which have undermined the trust in government. So the trust in the government and also in politics is very low in Netherlands. It's just something above the 40% of the Dutch citizens trusts the government and the politics, the representatives. It's rather low for the Dutch. In Dutch history, it's very low. I don't know how it is in the United States after Trump, but we are worried about these low trust figures in the Netherlands. It's not good, and we have now as a result also we have the same sort of developments as we saw before in the United States. So the Trump, but because citizens don't trust the government anymore, and they have a need for a strong leader, someone strong populist leader. According to us, that is not a good solution. That will not solve anything. So we try to fix the system and to prevent, well, more populism. We have too much of that.
Yeah, I think people have different opinions in the United States about what's going on in government and whether it's good or not, or how it could be fixed. But I do think it's really interesting, the idea of trying to go into the government and use the good work principles or the 3 E's and other concepts
Yeah,
that we haven't mentioned yet to actually fix it versus just relying on one leader. Which I think,
exactly.
something, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess I would think in a lot of governments, or at least where I'm living in the United States, it's all about the leader, the president, that one person, and less about,
exactly.
sometimes less about the entire system, or it's about parties and it gets very
Yeah.
complicated. But I think the approach you're taking with the Dutch government is very interesting. And I wanted to ask you further about that, and what have you been doing in response to the situation, and how has your work been shaped by the crisis?
Yes. Well, as I said, we try to help civil servants to reorganize and to think about their function in the government. And we have founded the academy, and we learn civil servants, for instance, how they contradict their political bosses. What is your professional honor? And we developed the idea of a fourfold right to civil service professionalism. I have to explain that. What the problem is in Dutch system is that during a long time the ministers and secretaries of state, so the political bosses in the government, they had a monopoly on civil service professionalism. So in the Netherlands, civil servants were forbidden, for instance, to talk to the Chamber of Representatives. They can't talk to the political representatives. They can't talk to citizens. So they are totally isolated, and they just have to do everything what the ministers and the government wants from them. They have to deliver. So that's not a good situation, because according to us, there's a fourfold right to civil service professionalism, because the citizens also have certainly a right to excellent civil service professionalism, but also the political representatives and also the civil servants themselves, because that's the essence of professional honor, that you know what is needed, and you know which ethical principles are involved because you're the expert. So it's not right that your expertise and your ethical principles are neglected because of political goals. So you get somewhere in the perfect picture would be that civil servants have to worry about the interests of all those four parties. So they have to worry about what can we do for the citizens, what do we have to do for the citizens, what do we have to do for political representatives, what do we have to do for the government, and what is our own professional honor. So we have to think about our own self-respect and our own professional honor and or professional pride. So they have to balance between all those interests. And now it's only, well, we have to do what the minister says we have to do, and we can't contradict. We can't say it's unethical or it's not a good idea because it won't work. It's just shut up and do what I tell you to do. Well, that's not professionalism. So we're trying to change that. Less political authority as for civil servants and more professional authority of civil servants who are balancing and who have to balance the interests of those different parties and different groups. That would be a lot better.
Yeah, sounds very similar to some things we're thinking about, or a lot of people are thinking about in the United States with parties and leaders. And can you blindly follow a leader, or
Yeah,
do you have more power as a public or civil servant to not talk back, but to really think decisions through and have the time to do that and respond before just going along with whatever your higher up or your
yeah,
boss or the leader of the country is telling you to
exactly.
do. That's something I think here we're really
Yes.
struggling with.
Yeah,
I
and
I would.
in the Netherlands we don't have, as in some countries you have, well, there's a new political leader or political government, and all the civil servants disappear, and you get new civil servants who have the political color of the government. So, but we don't have that in the Netherlands. Every civil servant has a stable job. He won't disappear. He just is there to do his job. So you can't ask of those civil servants to be a sort of chameleon, to change the colors depending on the government. So they have to have their own ethical and professional compass, and you have to respect that.
Mhm. And that makes a lot of sense. Regarding ethical issues in general, what are your thoughts about how society should change to better support ethical decision making?
Yes, well, difficult question because what I see in many societies in Europe, but also in the United States, of course, is that it's harder and harder to believe that human beings are ethical or interested in ethics. So it's all difficult. But what I think is the political systems as they work at this moment, they stimulate the unethical behaviors. So I think the populism we see in all countries, or also in Europe. Well, I think that's caused by the overrated uh, positions of, for instance, social media. So what's the news? The news is always everything is going worse and nothing is going better. So in such a time, it's very difficult to remain an ethical person, to do the right things. But I see around me is that in the daily life, and not in the political life, but in daily life, at least here in the Netherlands, people are very nice and gentle to each other. So it's only in politics that they distrust each other. But here, when I live here in my own city here, my neighbors or people I meet in the streets or the work I do, all the people I meet are decent people, really. But the strange fact is that when I see the political results of elections and so forth, I worry about what a human being is and if he is moral or if he has ethical principles. But when in my daily life, I don't see that. So there's a great difference, a sort of paradox, I would say. And perhaps the solution to get more ethical decision making is that people become more engaged and more become more the owners of their own society. So I think politics is a sort of free meal. So you vote and you get something, and you think only about your own interests. But in daily life, that's different. So we should try to change society and make it less political, I think, and make people more responsible for their own environment, the people they live with, the other citizens in their neighborhood, more small scale than large scale. That's, I think, what's needed to get more ethical decision making. And it's what I see in our the training we give and we do. So people are really interested in ethical decision making and becoming more ethical. They do want that, but it's a difficult environment to develop that. So you have also a question, what piece of media inspires you? And I read the last few months different books on what you could say are the classical capital sins. So you have envy, for instance, or you have pride. And in all these centuries, people have thought about what can you do about capital sins, because everyone is sometimes envious or has wrong pride or but we have a lot of thinkers, but also practices are developed or have been developed to change that. So how can you prevent that people become envious? That, for instance, by creating a society with more equality, for instance, and we come back to politics, but if the differences are too great and some people are incredibly rich, which they don't really deserve. And others are really poor, which they don't deserve. Right? And there's no equality, there's no justice. Then it's very difficult to get a society in which ethical decision making is flowering or is worthwhile. So we need politics to change society, but as I told you earlier, politics is also a bit sick. It seems not to be the best way to change society, but well, I'm still searching. But these are some thoughts I have about that. Hope you
Yeah,
can do. It's clear. It's sort of essayistic searching for how can we do better. I don't have all the answers.
I don't think any of us do, but we hopefully have good strategies we're developing in different ways. And definitely it's hard with the wealth gap too. And ethics plays a part. And how do we change society for the better to help everyone, no matter your socioeconomic background or any other
Yeah,
part of your identity? How it would be very difficult to find a solution for everyone that everyone would like right away without
yeah.
any explanation. So I understand that. And before I get to our final question, which is like more of a fun question, I wanted to ask you, what do you hope for the future of your work, and what are your connected hopes for Dutch government and society?
Yes, well, as you will understand, I hope that, yeah, or Academy for Civil Servants, for professionalism for civil servants will be a great success, and that we will be able to train many civil servants to be more excellent and more ethical and more engaged in their work here in the Netherlands, and that's what we're working hard for. So I hope that we will succeed in that and that we can make the Dutch government better than it is, and that we can also correct the dominance of the politics over the civil servants, that we can boost the professional honor of civil servants here in the Netherlands. That would be, I think, a major step forward. Certainly in these times of populism and in which it's sometimes hard to keep the hope up, huh? So that's what I hope for. Is that an answer to your question?
Yes, thank you. And it's been really interesting hearing all about your work with the Dutch government and the different ways you're reflecting on how it could be better. And My final question I wanted to ask was a fun one, somewhat unrelated to what we are talking about before, but could also be related. What piece of media have you turned to recently or in the past for inspiration? And this piece of media could be a podcast, book, a movie, a TV program, or something else.
Yeah. Well, I thought about that, but I really would like to mention two books I read recently, and I mentioned also something about that. Two books about moral emotions, because that's one of my main hobbies. Also, a book on recently, just 1 month old, in Dutch, on envy. It's a beautiful book, and there has been last year a book on pride. So the two books on moral emotions. These books are really excellent. They analyze these two moral emotions. The one is more positive than the other, in a really excellent way. And the book on pride has won a prize, a prize for best philosophical book last year. And it's really an excellent book, because in 2009 and 10, I published work on professional pride. So I thought about the emotion of pride myself, but this book is really a gem on that emotion. And also the book on envy is very interesting. And I think to think about these emotions, these moral emotions, is uh, is very important in these times, and very urgent. So, well, it would be good when they would be translated in English. I think it's very worth a reading. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for being on our podcast. For everyone else, you can check us out at www.thegoodproject.org and make sure to check out what else we have on there. And thank you so much.